It has been a while since we brought you a buy, sell, or hold videos, but we say, hey, let's mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're bringing you the most controversial players currently in the Dynasty community, and obviously
Spicy.
whether you should be buying, selling, or holding. Okay, the first player that we have on the list today is Kyren Williams. We're going to be talking about a couple different conversations here about a couple different players. Kyren Williams, according to the community right now, Keep Trade Cut, RB10 on our Flock Fantasy website, RB11. And the trade value right now, if you still haven't done your rookie drafts, a 2024 1010 or a 25 mid first, would you, Zach, be buying, selling, or holding?
So I don't want to start off with like a what's the word? Like not giving a direct answer, but
Sure.
I do truly believe that Kyren is a very unique case in Dynasty football. He might be one of the more unique players in the Dynasty landscape. And I think the answer really does change depending on your team construction. For example, if I'm a contender, I'm completely happy to go out and buy Kyren Williams at this price point.
Okay.
If I'm a rebuilder and I'm planning on competing maybe even next year with how much uncertainty around Blake Corum there is, I would be willing to sell. Let's talk about both of those angles, though. So if I was buying, it's because I'm a contender. And I think it's because the risk reward is worth it when you realize the league-winning upside Kyren Williams has. Respectfully, like this isn't trading for like a good RB2 like a Montgomery and Eckler. The ceiling is way higher than this. In 2023, Kyren Williams had the most rushing yards per game. He had the 6th best yards per carry. He had the 7th best touchdown rate. And he scored the 2nd most fantasy points per game amongst running backs. That's with guys who had at least 50 attempts. Now, that's the upside. The reason to be concerned and sell if you're not competing right here, right now, is because long term, we do have some questions. At what point does Blake Corum kind of wiggle his way into a role? Kyren's volume was ridiculous last year. He was one of the most highly used players at that position. Naturally, like, shouldn't that come down? Not that they drafted Blake Corum, right? Yep. Last year, he was number 1 in snap percentage amongst running backs. He had the 2nd most attempts percentage of his team's rushing attempts. And yards before contact per attempt, he had the 7th best metric there. That's important to note because it just shows how well Sean McVay sets up his running back. Why can't Blake Corum be successful when the running back is always given a good opportunity? Like, imagine Travis Etienne behind this line, for example, instead of behind Jacksonville's line. What would he average per carry? So, and the last thing I'll say is that there's just a history of Sean McVay cycling through backs. He hasn't had a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher since 2017, 2018. He also hasn't had a running back repeat as the leading rusher since 2019 as well. It's been Cam Akers and Sony Michel, then Cam Akers and Kyren Williams. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I think it depends. If I'm competing, I'm willing to pay the price. And, there's very few guys with that kind of upside at that price. But if I'm rebuilding, I think there are better assets. I'd rather trade him to a wide receiver of equal value or, get an early first in 25 because it's just too risky.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, for me, I completely agree. I'm a huge sell, I guess, right now. I think regardless whether I'm rebuilding or maybe even a win now team, can I pivot to somebody else?
Okay, you're straight sell no matter what.
I am straight sell because of the concerns that you brought in that last point. Is the Sean McVay usage of these running backs in the past couple of years. You saw, right, Cam Akers, Sony Michel, Cam Akers, and then Kyren Williams. They draft Blake Corum, who a lot of people think is one of the best running backs or top 5 running backs in this NFL draft in 2024. And the 3rd round draft capital is not something to, just sweep under the rug. We've seen a lot of success of these 3rd round running backs, and maybe Kyren Williams is the pass catching back and Blake Corum is a 1-2 punch. How much is that going to be affecting his workload going into the 2024 season and beyond? Let's be completely honest with you. And who says, which I completely doubt, but who says, which let's be honest, it doesn't even make sense. I'll probably be saying, who says that they don't draft another running back next year, right? Anything could potentially happen. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but we've been surprised a couple of different times in the NFL for multiple players here. And when you think about the market value, right, you can see it on your screen probably, 2024, 110. If you haven't done your rookie drafts right now, whether you're a contending team or not, that could be a Brian Thomas Jr., an Xavier Worthy, a Lam McConkey. We've seen Brock Bowers fall to the 110. We've seen Bo Nix go to the 110. I would confidently say, I don't know about you, but at least for me, I would take all those guys over Kyren Williams, regardless of maybe my team situation.
that's where it comes into play for me, because I don't think if Kyren Williams is who he was last year, none of those guys are going to help you win more than he will. So that's why I say it depends on your team construction. I actually statted out Kyren Williams in my projections over on the redraft channel. I gave him 55% of the team rushing attempts. You know, we talked about this.
Yep.
He had 68% last year. So I gave Blake Corum 31%. I gave him 55%. And he still ends up finishing, at least in my rankings and it's my projections, as the RB6 on the year in PPR format. So I do think Blake Corum's going to play a role, but Kyron's going to have to get injured in order for everything to fall apart, I'd say. But long term, I'm still like Blake Corum in 2025 could really get a hold on that job. The same way that Kyren Williams, it took a year for him to get a hold of the job. But,
sure.
So I think if you're trying to win right now, I think that the price is okay.
Yeah, the price is not terrible. I don't think so. But I think what's exciting is the potential value you could be getting here, even at the 2024 price or even the 25 price. I mean, you think of the running backs coming in 2024. I mean, I don't even know. 2025, excuse me. I don't even know all of them.
Gordon,
Quinton Johnson,
Judkins, Henderson.
A lot of people would potentially rather have this type of talent and the potential draft capital that these guys are going to be getting in 2025 over Kyren Williams right now, right? So,
all right, let's go on to the next player. You're a sell regardless. I think it depends on team construction. Player number 2, very controversial, just got a big contract extension. Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver 11 on Keep Trade Cut. In our Flock fantasy community, he's a wide receiver 20. I think it's more somewhere in the middle where people value him. He's my wide receiver 16. At the moment, according to Keep Trade Cut, you can trade the 105, or you can get the 105 in 2024 if you haven't done your drafts for Jaylen Waddle, or an early top 3 2025 first round pick. So I'll start with you, Badaki. Are you a buy, sell, or hold on Jaylen Waddle after this contract extension?
Yeah, this actually gives me more fuel to sell. I've been a huge sell Jaylen Waddle all offseason, and really of one big concern, and that's Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill does have another 2 years on this contract. They could have a potential out going at the end of this season. But what I do know is that draft hits, or that dead cap hit, is not something that you're going to want to be getting yourself into if you are Miami Dolphins. And also,
you probably want to keep the best player at his position on your team, right?
100%. I mean, they could get out of his contract at the end of 2025 with a $22 million dead cap hit. You can even... Yeah, and I'll provide a screenshot here, right? $22 million, and in 2026, $11 million. So what have we been talking about all offseason? Even when Tyreek Hill signed that contract extension, he says, I want to retire with this team however long I'm going to be playing for. And Jaylen Waddle signed a 3-year contract. Tyreek Hill has another 2 years on this contract, I guess, including 3 years, including if you were to include the 2024 year. Where's Jaylen Waddle going to be at the end of that contract? Now, I'm not saying he can't surpass Tyreek Hill, but when you think of his upside, I don't think we can see any higher than what we've possibly seen so far in his career, right? I mean, in 2021, 15.4 fantasy points per game. That's okay, right? In 2022, 15.3, which was 12th that year. He played all 17 games. In this past year, 14.2 finished 21st in the fantasy points per game. Jaylen Waddle has a talent, but right now he 1,000% has that wide receiver 2 tag that can any given week could be wide receiver 1. But I'm willing to pivot off to the market value right now, the 105. A lot of people we've seen Rome Odunze. Can you squeeze a Malik Neighbors? Can I get one of these quarterbacks, a JJ or Drake May, with the longevity and hopefully that these guys can take over? So for me, Jaylen Waddle is a huge sell.
So, unfortunately, I'm also selling Jaylen Waddle, and it's because what I'm really focused on is the question is, you're not selling him as a player, as a talent, based off what you can get for him. If he truly is wide receiver 11 in Dynasty community, and I can get the 105 or an early top 3 25 first, then yes, I am selling Jaylen Waddle. I loved his price before the contract extension. I don't understand why he's moved up so much after this contract extension.
Significantly.
Like, did we really not think he'd stay in Miami? Who thought the Dolphins were going to let him move? Now he's more valuable somehow. I just statted out Jaylen Waddle's 2024 season, and I will say, if he stays healthy, he will have a huge year. But you're right, he is a wide receiver too. Why is he priced as a wide receiver 1. We know he's a wide receiver 2, a high-end, really good wide receiver 2, but he's priced as a wide receiver 1. His career high is 15.4 points per game, like you mentioned. That was his rookie season, no Tyreek Hill, okay? Since Tyreek Hill's joined this team, he's commanded over 30% of the target share both years, and that has hurt Jaylen Waddle. My question, Badaki, is I put a list of players together that I can't comprehend why Jaylen Waddle is more valuable than them.
Okay.
Why there's a significant gap in the market. And consider this your tier down list from Jaylen Waddle, right? Sure. Why is Waddle more valuable at wide receiver 11 than Brandon Ayuk? Brandon Ayuk is wide receiver 15, 15.6 points per game. That's his career high. All the points per game you're seeing are the career high for these players, right? And every one of them have a higher career high than Jaylen Waddle outside of Tank Dell. How about Nico Collins, wide receiver 17? He just got a contract extension. He's linked to an elite quarterback. He just averaged over 17 points per game last year. Why is there a 6-position gap between those two names? How about Michael Pittman, wide receiver 18, higher points per game in his career in a single season than Waddle? How about DJ Moore, wide receiver 19, DK Metcalf, wide receiver 21? I am starting to come around with grubs. How about T. Higgins, wide receiver 22? How about Tank Dell, wide receiver 23, who averaged 15 points per game as a rookie? Waddle's a high-end wide receiver 2. All the wide receivers I just brought to you are at minimum high-end wide receiver 2s or wide receiver 2s in fantasy football or with their team. I don't understand how the contract magically makes him more valuable. It doesn't comprehend in my brain. Maybe I'm not as smart as other people. That's very well could be the case. And by the way, if you're going to use he's a young player, he's so young. Everyone I just brought to you, minus DJ Moore, is within 13 months of Jaylen Waddle's age, which is 25 and a half years old.
Sure.
So youth shouldn't be a selling point either. So here's some ideas that I would sell him for. Jaylen Waddle and a third. We're going to get back a second-round pick in any of these names. Nico Collins, Ayuk, Pittman, Rome Odunze. You're telling me if you can get the 105, that means you can lock in Rome Odunze and maybe a second-round pick if you trade it back in the rookie draft? That's crazy. How about sending Jaylen Waddle for Tank Dell, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, or DJ Moore and a second-round pick and leaving out the third-round pick? So for me, Waddle's a strong sell. It's not because I don't love him. I loved his price before the contract. I can't wrap my head around why he's more valuable now. We're about to get into the next take, but maybe you have one of these players on your team and you don't know how to trade them.
Oh boy.
Well, we can help. All you got to do is become a Motherflocker member with the promo code LAND. When you sign up, you get a team review on a live stream where we can tell you what trades you should make with your league.
That's right.
You also get a hotline, a DM to us for advice. We can help you figure out any player that you aren't sure what to do with moving forward. But consider supporting the show. Become a Motherflocker member. Check out the pinned comment, and let's get back to the video.
Our next player here at the tight end position, Kyle Pitts.
My guy.
This is definitely controversial. I'm really interested to see where you have him. I think you might be surprised. Key trade cut, tight end 5, Flock Fantasy, the tight end 7, valued as the 109 currently. If you haven't done your rookie draft in 2024 or a mid-25 first, Zach, are you buying, selling, or holding?
You know I can't make a video where I'm selling Kyle Pitts. That's my guy, ride or die. I'm absolutely buying. Kyle Pitts truthers, where y'all at? We have gone through the ringer on this one.
Sure.
But our time has officially come. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Friendly reminder. May I just remind everyone, and I know recency bias is important and people like to ignore context, but to bring some context to you, the last time Kyle Pitts had even average quarterback play was his rookie season. Yeah. And that was with Matt Ryan. We know what Matt Ryan did the next year with the Indianapolis Colts. That was the last time he had a decent quarterback. In that rookie season, Kyle Pitts made history. Rookie seasons for tight ends all time. He is 1 out of 2 tight ends with 1,000 receiving yards as a rookie. Only him and Mike Ditka. He is 1 out of 5 wide receivers with at least 68 receptions. He's 1 out of 4 tight ends with at least 110 targets in the rookie season. And he's 1 out of 3 with 15 plus yards per reception on their rookie season. Since that time, his rookie season, it was so glorious and we all felt so great about it. He's had the worst quarterback play in the NFL, point blank, period.
100%.
And it matters. Quarterback play matters. In 2022, Marcus Mariota was his starting quarterback who had a 62.7 PFF grade, which, by the way, wasn't even top 40 in the NFL. There's only 32 teams. It wasn't top 40. In 2023, he had Desmond Ridder, who had an even worse PFF grade, 53.2, and he was 60th. That's a 60th highest grade.
Sure.
PFF quarterback grades aren't perfect, but it just shows you, like, if you're not even in the top 32, how bad are you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am all in, ready to be hurt again. We're buying Kyle Pitts over here, 100%. Talent is there, and we finally got Kirk Thuggins, baby.
Kirk Thuggins. Look, I completely understand. I bought Kyle Pitts as a good value in the community early in this offseason. For me, he's a hold. This is the way I'm envisioning it. If I have Kyle Pitts, I'm holding. If I don't have Kyle Pitts, I'm not going out to spend all that capital. I would say I'm willing to pay a little bit more of a premium price to get the McBrides, the Daltons, the Laportas, but Pitts is a good value right now. Like you said, Kirk Thuggins is in this offense. He's going to come in and demand under center and has been produced fantasy relevant tight ends in the past. Obviously, the most recent one with TJ Hawkinson, the new offensive coordinator here, and Zach Robinson, which is really exciting. Remember, the past 2 years with Marcus Mariota and all these other quarterbacks and Desmond Ridder, they were bottom 10th in the league in passing attempts. Zach Robinson alone this past year with the Rams were top 9 in passing attempts in the NFL with the Rams, excuse me, right? So I think when I think of Kyle Pitts, and if I own Kyle Pitts, which I only own him in one league, I'm holding unless I can get a crazy value that somebody potentially wants to be selling and are buying for Kyle Pitts. But if not, I'm just willing to stay put, and not do anything too crazy with Kyle Pitts.
Let me just add a little more fuel to the fire for Kyle Pitts, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And he is one of, I think, 7 tight ends all time to average 20+% target share in their second and third season. This is according to Dynasty_IM over on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for people who are smarter than me, and it's awesome that this tweet came out at the same time. The issue hasn't been his involvement. First off, last year he was injured, right? He wasn't his full self.
Sure.
But the issue hasn't been his involvement. He's always been involved. He's never had catchable targets on a consistent basis, but he's always had targets. He's always been recognized as an important part of an offense. Now you're finally getting Kirk Cousins in this thing. I think he's going to have an incredible year. I think he goes over 1,000 yards. I think he gets into the end zone on a much more consistent basis. And at the moment, I have him scoring about 250 PPR points on the season if he stays healthy.
Sure.
If he stays healthy.
Yeah.
So 250 on the season, you're looking at about 14 or so points per game. That's a huge, huge year. I could be blind, but I think he's going to have a great season. All right. Last player, which is obviously controversial as well, Trevor Lawrence, quarterback 13, according to Keep Trade Cut, the 12th quarterback in our community. I have him ranked as a quarterback 13 myself. I'm right around there. He's worth the 103 to the 104 in 2024 rookie drafts, or an early first and second in a future draft. So where do you stand with Trevor Lawrence? Are you a buy, sell, or hold?
For me, man, this is so tough. Right now, I'm a soft sell. How about that? I am a soft sell when it comes down to Trevor Lawrence. And let me tell you why. And I'll tell you why, because I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a good quarterback for the NFL. I don't think he's going to be the elite quarterback I think we were hoping for while he was coming out of college. Now, he has proven that he can finish as a top 10 quarterback in fantasy in that 1 year in 2022. Now, I think that's his absolute ceiling. If you're projecting, not you specifically, but if anyone's projecting that Trevor Lawrence is going to finish as a top 5, or I would even say top 8 quarterback, I think that's stretching it just a little bit. Now, he has done that before, but I think the situation was perfect. Now, they go out and draft Brian Thomas Jr. They have Christian Kirk. You have Travis Etienne. I don't believe that the value here is worth keeping Trevor Lawrence. I would rather pivot when I think of the quarterbacks and their fantasy points per game when it comes down in the community. Sure. Right. And look at the ranks in the community, QB 13 currently right now. And here are the quarterbacks that are going around Trevor Lawrence that I just feel more confident in, right? These are 2 spots ahead and below. Kyler Murray at QB 11 at a phenomenal value. Can I send Trevor Lawrence in a piece to go out and acquire Kyler Murray, who has finished as a top 5 quarterback multiple years, right? Can I even get a Jaden Daniels, who is a rookie quarterback, but has the rushing upside that we're believing in currently in the community? And once again, it's nothing against Trevor Lawrence. I think his upside is capped at the moment. Can I go out and get a Brock Purdy, who has a phenomenal supporting cast, who is going to be on this team? I think we can all agree he's going to get that long-term contract extension, who is currently cheaper than Trevor Lawrence right now. Same thing, I would even say, if you were a win-now team with Dak Prescott. Can I go get it out and get a Dak Prescott who just finished as a top 5 quarterback this past year and has CeeDee Lamb, and the list goes on? Well, really just CeeDee Lamb. He can only do it with CeeDee Lamb, right? So
sure.
I think when I think of Trevor Lawrence, I just believe his upside is capped when it comes down to his ceiling. And I would rather pivot to a cheaper option that potentially has a higher upside as their career goes on.
Okay, I hear you. I would say I'm a strong hold at this point. I'm a strong hold on Trevor Lawrence. I have no doubts that Trevor's going to be in the league for a long time. I have no doubts that he's going to get a contract extension in Jacksonville. We can't undervalue what he's done for this franchise. This franchise was battling for the number 1 overall pick every single year without Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He gave them their first playoff win in super long, like 5, 6, 7 years.
A comeback playoff win.
Yeah, he did it versus Justin Herbert, who, by the way, hasn't had a playoff win, has not done that. Before him, this team was the dumpster fire of the NFL. And I get, he hasn't put it all together. Like, this is a common trend. Wow, he's number 1 overall pick, generational prospect. He's just not ever put it together. He's a bust. People keep saying that. I think that's ridiculous. He's not a bust. He hasn't put it all together. I'll give you that. Yet, he has still finished quarterback 12 or quarterback 13 on a per game basis in each of the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So he hasn't put it all together. We all agree he hasn't put it all together, right?
Yeah.
Yet, he's still finished quarterback 12 or 13 in a per game basis in the past 2 seasons. And his number 1 weapon, who I thought would transform his game entirely, was disgustingly bad last year. Why are we not talking about this when we talk about Trevor Lawrence? The Trevor Lawrence discourse is always without Calvin Ridley. Why? That was supposed to be his number 1 dude. It was his number 1 dude in target share. Mm-hmm. Calvin Ridley had a career low 55% catch percentage in 2023. Disgustingly bad. Between Ridley and his teammates, there was probably 10 passing touchdowns that were left on the table because they couldn't, handle the ball, or because they only got 1 foot in, or they just did something stupid in the red zone, right? Yeah. We can all recognize that Ridley was a huge letdown, but no one is considering that when we talk about Trevor Lawrence and why he hasn't lived up to his potential. What if Calvin Ridley was who he was at the Falcons last year? What would that have done for Trevor Lawrence? And I think that's something that we just don't talk about in this discourse, and I don't understand why, because those two were heavily connected. He was throwing him the ball more than anyone else outside of Evan Ingram. So the team just spent a first-round pick on a wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr.,
yeah,
who we all really love, who we think the ceiling is through the roof. He's not the most sticky prospect. There are some concerns around his ability to separate at the next level, but I think his ceiling is amongst some of the highest in this entire class. If he and Trevor Lawrence click, who's to say that the ceiling isn't, untapped at this point? So I'm still in on Trevor Lawrence. And again, I don't think we give him enough credit or enough of a break. Everyone who is anti-Calvin Ridley loves to trash on him. And they also love to trash on Trevor without giving him a break because of that situation. It just doesn't add up how those two things don't make sense to me.
I think, when it comes down to that conversation, which I think it was how high the community was on that. People were so in on, not saying you specifically, but the community was like, Calvin Ridley is a top 12 wide receiver, and Trevor Lawrence is easily going to finish as a top 10 quarterback. And I think the expectation last year was in the community, and the way they were building it up was like, they're going to be great no matter what. Because we just saw Trevor Lawrence finish as a top 10 quarterback, or what was it that year in 2022? It was top 8 quarterback.
I guess finish, not per game basis.
Finish, right, in amongst quarterbacks. And then Calvin Ridley, who has been a phenomenal quarterback or wide receiver, especially with Matt Ryan, hasn't played in 2 years. He's going to come back and be great. I think the expectation that the community put on both of these guys really let down everyone. Not even in a dynasty perspective, but also in a redraft perspective. People were taking Kyren really early second round in redraft and being.
Well, that kind of supports my point, no?
No, I know, and I'm saying I'm also saying this also supports it, that the expectation was just a little bit too high, and I agree. Like people got really excited, people were believing in it, and then it failed them. And people are like, well, they're both kind of trash now. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like Trevor isn't trash, you know. Yeah. And I know you're hyperbole speaking for others there.
Yeah.
But it just did not click, and I don't think we're giving him enough credit. But I'm curious to see where the community stands on these names. Who are you buying? Who are you selling? Who are you holding? Let us know in the comments below. And we appreciate you for watching this. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.